Drunk heckler called John a communist. His response stunned 30,000 people. A drunk war veteran stood up in the middle of Shea Stadium and screamed words that could have destroyed John Lennon's career forever. But what John did next changed everything America thought they knew about the man behind the Beatles. It was August 23, 1966, the height of the Cold War. America was bleeding in Vietnam, and John Lennon was about to face the most dangerous moment of his life. 30,000 people packed into Shea Stadium that night. They came for music. They got a revolution. What happened in those next 15 minutes would haunt John for the rest of his days and split America down the middle. The FBI was watching. The press was recording. The government was waiting for one wrong word to destroy him. This is the story they tried to bury. The night John Lennon became more than a Beatle. The night he became a target. The Beatles' 1966 American tour was cursed from the beginning. John's bigger-than-Jesus comment had already ignited a firestorm across the Bible Belt. Radio stations banned their music. Fans burned their albums in the streets. Death threats poured in daily. But it was the other comment that terrified the FBI. The one about Vietnam. The one the press tried to silence. "We think the war is wrong," John had said in a private interview that somehow leaked. "And if that makes us communists, then half of America's youth are communists too." Those words reached J. Edgar Hoover's desk within hours. The FBI opened a file. Codename Lennon Red. Agent William Sullivan personally briefed 3 operatives assigned to the Beatles tour. "Watch him, record everything. One slip, one communist connection, and we move." By August 23rd, federal agents were embedded in the Shea Stadium crowd. They weren't there to protect John Lennon. They were there to monitor him. The atmosphere in New York was electric with tension. Vietnam War protests were escalating. The summer had seen riots in Chicago, Cleveland, and Brooklyn. Young Americans were questioning everything their government told them. And here was John Lennon, the most influential young voice in the world, about to perform for 30,000 impressionable kids. Brian Epstein, the Beatles' manager, was terrified. "John, please," he begged backstage, "no politics tonight, just music." About the music that reminded us we were still human. About wanting this whole nightmare to end. He pointed to John. This man's music kept us sane, kept us hoping, kept us believing that maybe there was still beauty in the world worth fighting for. Tank's voice rose. "So don't you dare call him a communist for wanting the killing to stop. Don't you dare call him unpatriotic for caring about American boys dying in a jungle." The crowd was on its feet now, not cheering or booing, just listening, really listening for maybe the first time all night. John stepped forward, put his hand on Tank's shoulder. "Sergeant Morrison," John said, "would you do me the honor of singing a song with me? For Jimmy Rodriguez. For all the Jimmys who aren't coming home." Tank nodded, too emotional to speak. John motioned to Paul, George, and Ringo. They took their positions. But this wasn't going to be a Beatles song. This was going to be something else entirely. John started singing "We Shall Overcome," the anthem of the civil rights movement. But he changed the words, made them about peace, about ending the war, about bringing the boys home. "We shall overcome the fear and hate. We shall overcome before it's too late. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday." Tank joined in, his rough Marine voice blending with John's. Then Paul added his harmony. Then George. Then Ringo on the drums. "You hate our boys dying in Vietnam." The crowd erupted, some booing Tank, others cheering him. Fights broke out in 3 different sections. Security moved toward him, but John raised his hand, stopped them cold. The stadium fell silent. You could hear hearts beating, car horns in the distance, the hum of the amplifiers. John walked to the edge of the stage, set down his Rickenbacker guitar, looked directly at this broken soldier. "What's your name, mate?" Tank swayed, caught off guard by the gentle tone. "Don't you mate me, you British freak. I'm Staff Sergeant Morrison, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. I lost 6 good friends in that jungle, while you sit here getting rich off American kids." The crowd was split down the middle, half booing Tank, half cheering him. The FBI agents moved closer, ready to arrest John the moment he said anything that could be construed as seditious. John stood there, calm as death. His voice, when he spoke into the microphone, was barely above a whisper. "Sergeant Morrison," John said. His words carried to every corner of that stadium. "You've been to Vietnam?" "Damn right I have. 13 months watching good American boys die, while you long-haired communists sit here safe and sound making millions." John nodded slowly. "Then you know things I'll never know." Tank blinked, confused by the response. "You know what real courage looks like. You know what it means to be afraid. To watch friends die, to come home to a country that doesn't understand what you've been through." The anger in Tank's face flickered. Just for a moment. What John said next would echo through history and land him on the FBI's most wanted list. "Sergeant Morrison," John continued, his voice growing stronger, "I've never called myself a communist. But if caring about the boys dying in Vietnam makes me one, if questioning why we're sending children to die in a jungle on the other side of the world makes me one, if thinking that maybe, just maybe, there's got to be a better way to solve our problems than killing each other makes me one." John paused. The stadium held its breath. "Then I guess I'm guilty as charged." The explosion was immediate. Half the crowd erupted in cheers, the other half in boos and angry shouts. Security rushed toward the stage, but John kept talking. "But let me ask you something, Sergeant. When your friends were dying over there, were they dying for communism? Were they dying for capitalism? Or were they dying for each other?" Tank's face crumpled. The fight went out of him like air from a punctured balloon. "They were dying for each other," Tank whispered. But the stadium microphones picked it up. "That's love, mate. That's not politics. That's love." John set down his microphone and walked to the security barrier. "Come here, Sergeant." Tank looked around, confused. The bourbon was wearing off. Reality was setting in. He was about to be arrested. Maybe beaten. Definitely humiliated. "Come on," John said gently. "Come talk to me. Just 2 men trying to figure out this bloody mess." Security helped Tank climb over the barrier and up onto the stage. The crowd was electric with tension. The FBI agents spoke frantically into their radios. Face to face now. The rock star and the soldier. Both young men. Both scared. Both trying to make sense of a world gone mad. "What's it like over there?" John asked quietly. But the microphone caught every word. And then something magical happened. The crowd started singing. Not all of them, maybe half, but 15,000 voices singing together about overcoming, about peace, about hope. The FBI agents spoke urgently into their radios. This was exactly what they'd been afraid of. John Lennon turning a rock concert into a peace rally. But there was nothing they could do now. Not with 30,000 witnesses. Not with Tank Morrison, decorated Marine veteran, standing beside the communist rock star, singing about bringing American boys home alive. When the song ended, Tank embraced John, a long, hard hug between 2 men who had found something unexpected in each other. "Thank you," Tank whispered. "Thank you," John whispered back. Then Tank turned to the crowd one more time. "I came here tonight to call this man a communist," Tank said. "I came here angry, drunk, ready to fight." He paused, gathering his thoughts. But communists don't cry for dead American soldiers. Communists don't sing about love and hope and bringing our boys home. This man isn't a communist. He's just a human being who gives a damn. Tank looked directly into the TV cameras that had been rolling throughout the entire incident. "So to everyone watching at home, To every politician in Washington, to everyone who thinks questioning this war makes you unpatriotic, Jimmy Rodriguez died believing in peace. He died believing in love. He died believing that maybe his sacrifice might mean something if we could just stop the killing. Tank's voice broke one more time. Don't let him die for nothing. What happened after that night changed everything. The concert footage was broadcast on every major network. The FBI tried to suppress it, but bootleg copies spread like wildfire. Within a week, Lennon and the Marine was being shown in living rooms across America. Tank Morrison became an overnight spokesman for Vietnam veterans against the war. His story and John's response inspired thousands of soldiers to speak out against the conflict they were fighting. But there was a price. John Lennon's FBI file grew to over 300 pages. But Tank Morrison, Staff Sergeant, United States Marines, stepped between them and John Lennon. "Back off," Tank shouted. "This man is speaking the truth they don't want you to hear." What happened next stunned everyone in that stadium. Tank turned to the crowd. 30,000 faces staring back at him. Some with hatred, some with pity. Most with something he hadn't seen in months. Understanding. "You want to know the real truth?" Tank said into John's microphone, his voice stronger now, clearer. "The real truth is that Jimmy Rodriguez died listening to In My Life on his radio. The medic told me. Said Jimmy was humming it when the shrapnel tore through his chest. The stadium was so quiet you could hear the traffic outside. And you know what else? Half the guys in my unit, they agreed with Lennon here. About the war, about questioning authority, about peace." Tank turned to face the crowd directly. "But we couldn't say it, because saying it meant we were traitors, meant Jimmy died for nothing, meant admitting that maybe the guys in Washington sending us over there don't know what the hell they're doing." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. This wasn't supposed to happen. A Marine sergeant wasn't supposed to agree with the long-haired British rocker. The narrative was supposed to be simple. Patriotic American soldier versus communist sympathizer. But life is never that simple. "You know what we talked about in those foxholes?" Tank continued. "We talked about going home, about our girls, about our families." Tank's voice cracked. "It's hell, man. Pure hell. Kids my age, scared out of their minds, dying for what? Nobody could tell us what we were really fighting for. Stop the spread of communism, they said. But the Vietnamese just wanted us to leave them alone. How many friends did you lose?" 6. Tank's voice was barely a whisper. 6 good men, best people I ever knew. "Tell me about one of them." The crowd leaned forward. 30,000 people hanging on every word. The FBI agents took frantic notes. "Jimmy," Tank said, tears starting to flow. "Jimmy Rodriguez from El Paso, 20 years old, carried a picture of his girl and a harmonica everywhere. Played yesterday, every night before we went to sleep." Tank was fully crying now, months of suppressed grief pouring out. He got hit by mortar fire 2 weeks before he was supposed to go home. 2 weeks. Last thing he said was, he hoped you guys knew how much your music meant to him, how it kept him sane over there. John closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were filled with tears that reflected the stadium lights like stars. "Jimmy Rodriguez," John said into the microphone, his voice breaking. 20 years old, from El Paso, loved music, loved his girl, loved his friends. The stadium was silent as a church. "This song is for Jimmy Rodriguez, and for Sergeant Morrison, and for everyone who's trying to find their way home." John sat at the piano. His fingers found the keys to yesterday. Just entertainment. John lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "Brian, mate, everything is political now. Breathing is political. Existing is political." Paul McCartney tried to lighten the mood. "Come on, John. It's just a concert. Let's give them Yesterday and Hey Jude and go home. No, John said quietly. It's never just a concert anymore. The Beatles took the stage at 8 p.m. sharp. The screaming was deafening, but something felt different, wrong. John could see them in the crowd. Men in suits who weren't screaming, weren't dancing, just watching, taking notes, recording. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. They were halfway through Help when it happened. A voice cut through the music like a razor. Rough, angry, drunk. Lennon, you communist bastard! The music stopped. All four Beatles looked up, startled. 30,000 people turned as one. In section 12, row F, a man in a torn army jacket was standing, swaying, pointing directly at John. Staff Sergeant Robert "Tank" Morrison, 26 years old, fresh back from Da Nang with shrapnel in his leg, nightmares in his head, and bourbon in his blood. "You hate America," Tank screamed, his voice carrying across the stunned stadium. But something was different. The words came out different, changed, raw. Yesterday, Jimmy Rodriguez was here to stay. Now, his friends must find a way to believe in yesterday. By the second verse, Tank was humming along, his broken voice mixing with John's smooth tenor. Suddenly, there's a shadow hanging over me. Jimmy's gone, but the war's not free. Oh, yesterday came suddenly. By the third verse, 30,000 people were crying. Hardened New Yorkers, tough construction workers, teenage girls, FBI agents, everyone. But John wasn't finished. He stood up from the piano, walked to center stage, looked out at the sea of faces. "You want to know if I'm a communist?" John said. "You want to know what I really believe?" The crowd went silent again. I believe in Jimmy Rodriguez. I believe in Sergeant Morrison. I believe in every mother who's lost a son, every father who's wondered if his boy will come home, every girlfriend who's cried herself to sleep wondering if the love of her life will survive another day in hell. John's voice grew stronger, more passionate. I believe that sending children to die for old men's politics is wrong. I believe that if you question that, it doesn't make you a communist. It makes you human. The cheers were deafening now, but so were the boos. I believe, John continued, that the same government that calls me a communist for asking questions is the same government that's lying to you about why we're in Vietnam. That did it. Security rushed the stage. He was placed under constant surveillance. His phones were tapped. His mail was intercepted. When he tried to get permanent residence in the United States years later, the government fought him every step of the way. Tank Morrison was court-martialed for conduct unbecoming a Marine. The charges were eventually dropped, but his military career was over. Neither man ever regretted that night. "It was the most honest moment of my life," Tank said in a 1975 interview. "John Lennon showed me that you can love your country and still question your government. You can support the troops and still oppose the war." John rarely spoke publicly about the incident, but in 1980, just weeks before his death, he gave one final interview about that night at Shea Stadium. "People always ask me about the bigger-than-Jesus comment," John said, "but that night with Tank Morrison, that was the moment I realized music could be more than entertainment. It could be truth. It could be healing. It could be revolution." The interviewer asked if he'd do it again, knowing the consequences. John smiled that crooked smile that had charmed the world. "In a heartbeat, mate." In a bloody heartbeat. Today, there's a small memorial in El Paso, Texas, for Jimmy Rodriguez and the other young men who died in Vietnam. Tank Morrison helped dedicate it in 1985. He brought a recording of that night at Shea Stadium. They played John singing "We Shall Overcome" as the sun set over the desert. And somewhere in that music, in that moment of connection between a rock star and a soldier, between doubt and faith, between war and peace, maybe Jimmy Rodriguez found his way home after all. The truth is, we'll never know if John Lennon was a communist. The FBI never found any evidence. The government never proved their case. But we do know this. On August 23, 1966, a broken Marine sergeant called him one in front of 30,000 people. And instead of running away from the accusation, instead of denying it or deflecting it, John Lennon chose to answer with the only thing he'd ever really believed in: love. Human. And sometimes, that's the most revolutionary thing of all. If this incredible story of courage and human connection moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of choosing understanding over anger. Have you ever witnessed a moment when music brought people together across impossible divides? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing untold stories about the moments that changed music history forever.